All right, and then overview of this. So today we're going to be going over the workshop, Let's Dismantle Ageism. Everything that you need to host this workshop yourself is on OldSchool.info, and Mel, Ryan, and I designed this workshop to be hosted by anyone. So on Old School, for free download, you will be able to find the script that we're going to be using today, the slide deck you're going to see using today, and obviously the handout that hopefully all of you have already downloaded. If you haven't, we'll put the link in the chat box, and that's totally fine. And so yeah, after today, our hope is that you run with this. Go do this workshop with your friends at your work. And if that idea terrifies you, you can also totally reach out to one of the three of us to host it for you. Also, we are obviously, since we're all meeting here in person, in the middle of a pandemic. And while this workshop is not going to be directly related to COVID-19 or the current pandemic, I'm sure all of you are already aware, ageism has been front and center, both in the response or lack thereof to this pandemic. And then also I've been seeing tons of intergenerational combativeness during the pandemic, lots of stereotypes and things being thrown around. So think of today as a crash course in ageism, which will help you overlay during this time. And if you want to know more about how ageism and the pandemic are really relating to each other, Ashton Applewhite's been blogging a ton about this. We've been posting blogs on Changing Aging about it. Ryan just wrote one that's really, really good. We can direct you to those sort of resources. All right, and with that, I am going to officially start what is Let's Dismantle Ageism. So from here forward, this is an exact experience of what you would do if you hosted this workshop with others. So the title of this presentation is Let's Dismantle Ageism. Let's start by defining what ageism is. Ageism is a prejudice against a person or persons due to their chronological age or their assumed chronological age. And just like racism or sexism are prejudices against persons due to the color of their skin or their gender, ageism exists against people who are older as well as people who are younger. And like these other prejudices, ageism rarely exists by itself. We often see multiple isms such as racism, sexism, ageism, and ableism affecting the same person. And this is what we call intersectionality. And so with that, we're going to start diving in. I want to also start by introducing myself. I'm Kyrié, I'm a coach, I'm an advocate, and I focus on ageism and dementiaism. And I'm also the co-founder of OldSchool.info and the editor of Changing Aging. And I also want to give my two co-hosts an opportunity to introduce themselves. Ryan?
Hi there, my name is Ryan Backer. I'm here in Montreal, Quebec. I am an age activist, and I'm also a co-founder of OldSchool.info, and I'm thrilled that you're all here.
Okay, so last but not least, I'm Mel Coppola, and my company, Hearts and Care, is focused on improving the care experience through advocacy, coaching, and education. I'm an educator with the Eden Alternative, and I live and breathe their principles along with the values of the Pioneer Network. And I'm blessed, really blessed, to focus my work on three of my passions, which is person-directed care, ableism, which includes dementia, and of course, ageism. Thanks.
Awesome. Great. And so hopefully you all got the email I sent out yesterday and had a chance to watch Ashton's TED Talk before coming on today. If you haven't had a chance to watch that yet, I can't recommend it highly enough. And in her TED Talk, she asks us to join her in a movement to end ageism. And as you can see in the quote on the slide here, Simon Sinek reminds us that in order to do that, we have to make this cause our own. And that's what we're here to do today. We're here to help make this cause personal and really explore where ageism resides inside of us and how ageism in the world has affected us. And so with that, I'll start by sharing my own story of how ageism, how I first woke up to ageism. So my whole life, I have worked in telling people stories, first in documentary educational film, then as a coach and a therapist. And in my clinical training to become a therapist, I was working in long-term care with elders living with dementia. And And when I got there, I was really shocked by what I was experiencing. These elders I was working with were not matching up with the stereotypes I'd been told. I met no shells of themselves. In fact, I was meeting whole people who were teaching me so much about what it was to be human. I was forming relationships with people even when, names weren't something we used to refer to each other. And I got really curious about why this was the case. Why did I have these preconceived notions about older people in general, specifically those living with dementia, that didn't match up to the lived experience that I was having, spending quality time with them? And I realized it was ageism. And ever since, I have been working to try to tell other people about it and do everything I can to dismantle it. And with that, we want to help all of you explore how ageism has affected you. So I'm going to hand it off to Mel.
Well, okay. I first learned about ageism through the Eden Alternative. I had become an educator with the Eden Alternative and heard about it through a webinar first that Dr. Bill Thomas and his wife Jude did back in 2012. And that was an eye-opening experience for me. And then again, in a training I took through the Eden Alternative, it became very clear that both ageism and ableism were abundantly present in life, in everywhere I looked. And once I saw it, I couldn't stop it, right? So it kept coming in, and I had to do something. So that's my story.
Ryan, do you want to share yours?
Sure. I went to school for gerontology, and during my first class, Gero 101, I learned about ageism, and it just so happened to be around the same time that Ashton started speaking publicly. So I was able to go to see Ashton live talk about ageism, and from then on, it's something that I couldn't stop thinking about.
Thank you. And so in order to change something as big as societal culture, we need to very first start with changing ourselves. And we must look deeply within and be really honest with what we see. And the first step towards any change, which I know from all the clients I've worked with, change always starts with awareness. And Mel, I think you have a question for us all then.
I think I do. I was going to ask Kyrié, can you run a poll for us? I would like to know, you should all see a poll on your screen. Yes, and I'd like for everybody to answer this. How many of you consider our culture to be ageist? Just go ahead and yes or no there. And then the second part of that is, do you consider yourself to be ageist? Yes and no. And wow, on the first, on question one, we've already got 100%. No, we have, I'm sorry, not all respondents in yet. Got about 90% coming in on the second question. I will tell you that on the first question, can you share those results, Kyrié? Looks like we have 100% consider our culture to be ageist.
Looks like we only have 80% of people in. So as soon as we get to 100, I will end that poll and share them. So everyone make sure to vote.
Gotcha.
All right, we'll go with 80%. I'm ending the poll.
It's pretty good. So we have 100% of you think our culture is ageist. Awesome. And then consider yourselves to be ageist. Well, we kind of have 62% think you might be, and 38% think you're not. So that's great. That's great. That's a great place. We need to know, as Kyrié just said, where we're at, right, before we do anything. So let's do a little exercise now to help you to see ageism in your life. I'm going to take that poll off. And what I'd like for each of you to do, I'm going to put up a slide with some questions here. There's 3 questions. I'd like you to think about just the first one, okay? Think of the 5 people that you spend the most time with, you choose to spend the most time with. I want you to think about the age gap with you and them, and what's the largest age gap? I want you to pop that in the chat box. Just put age gap and the number. And let's see those start coming in. Just watching that chat box. Okay, I see some numbers coming in. Great, and if you guys want to help me with Ryan and Kyrié with calling out some of those that you're seeing, because they're flying in now.
35, 28, 45, wow.
69, I saw 69.
I like what Crystal points out, 1.5 years right now because of COVID. Otherwise, it would be bigger. Yeah, social distancing is making this harder.
That is a great, a great thing to point out, Crystal. Yeah.
Do grandchildren
I can't think that fast. Do
Our
grandchildren count?
Is pretty biased.
It's a good question.
I think it is. Somebody said, wait, they're doing the math. Whoever you are, I love you, because that would be me. I have to use my fingers. But I see a lot, 40, wow, 47. I see 12, I see 20, 60, 15, 29, 25.
Lonnie doesn't know who, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Good, no, please.
No, I was just pointing out that Lonnie doesn't know how old their younger friends are.
Well, I love that response.
Good.
That's really great. Yes.
Throw out the paradigm altogether. Yes, please.
Yep.
Right, absolutely. So if you can, I would love if someone would unmute and just, why do you think we asked this question? Have you muted them? Do we have to unmute them all in order
you can unmute yourselves by hitting your microphone.
Good.
I'll speak up. I think that it's because there is a belief that older people want to spend most of their time with older people.
There is that belief.
Yeah.
I was going to add that we are segregated, I mean, pretty much from birth by age. You know, we separate our, what grade we're in by age. We separate our friend groups by what age we're in. People enter jobs into similar ages and so on and so forth. So socially and in other areas, we're fairly segregated.
Absolutely, Crystal. Good point. Anyone else want to chime in here?
I was going to say that my experience has been that when I go into a group with mixed age and I try to strike up a conversation with someone who's young, they don't show a whole lot of interest in me. So I feel like I would like to reach out beyond my own age group, but I find it really difficult to do that. And I don't think I'm an uninteresting person, so I don't know what that's about.
Well, you're here, Nancy. Of course you're not uninteresting. You're very interesting. So everything that you guys have shared, you folks have shared, I'm trying not to say you guys, is absolutely spot on, right? And this brings us to an awareness of why a lot of times people have a very narrow age gap in their group that they stay connected to. But obviously we've got the cream of the crop here who have a very wide span in their closest friends. So let's look at the second question. I'd like you to do, oh yes, Carol.
For me, it's just that I think the myth is that is the belief that we don't have anything in common with younger people or much older people. So I have older friends and I have younger friends, and I have something in common with every single one of them.
Right, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. Good point.
I'd like to share one quick thing, which is ageism works both ways. We old folks think the young don't want to listen to us, and the young folks think the same way, and we all come in with our own preconceived notions, and it's just a question of starting the dialogues.
There you go, Casey. Good point. And we are gonna look at it both ways too. So thanks for bringing that up. You must have seen the script before. So let's look at our second question.
I live it every
You live it every day. Okay, good. What was the last thing you said or thought you were too old for? Same thing. I want you to just pop it in the chat box, not a book. Just put down too old and whatever it is. Okay? And then again, if Kyrié and Ryan, if you guys can help me because it's going to fly by.
My favorite is interpersonal drama.
Whoa, yeah. Skateboarding, snow skiing, my hairstyle, running, Zoom. You're here. You can't be too old for Zoom.
Lots of
Too old to
skiing.
do chalk. Yes. Chalk on the sidewalk. Rollerblading.
Going to Machu Picchu now. We're all
Short
not
skirt.
the right age for that. Roller skate. BS.
I saw that.
Yeah, Abby.
Learning
High
new
heels.
computer programs. High heels, yeah. Bungee jumping. Yeah.
Wow.
Too old
okay.
for
Oh,
certain
Carrie, great one. Yeah, these are
clothing.
awesome. What a group we have.
I know. I thought that I couldn't apply for a scholarship because the money should go to younger people. Oh, Carrie, I'm so glad you decided to go for it. I hope you went for the scholarship. Learning how to leverage new technology, staying out late. I'm not too old for anything. Thank you, Brian. All right. Again, why do we think that we're too old for something? What is it about doing some of these things or wearing some of these things that we think we cannot or should not do or participate in? Somebody just a quick unmute.
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are inundated from birth with a lot of stereotypes and myths about aging. And once as it unfolds, those internalized messages just become more powerful and toxic. And we just, we live in a society that also reinforces that. If you've ever watched Seth Meyers, who I admire in a lot of ways, I think he's a great comic, but he can't seem to do one of his routines without demeaning old people. And I don't even think he's conscious of it, but it just permeates the culture. So it's very hard to free oneself when you're getting bombarded again all the time with those kinds of images.
Absolutely, Robert. I couldn't have said it better, and thank you for everything you said. That's exactly right. So we're going to move right on to that last question because I think Robert encapsulated it beautifully. So what was the last thing you thought or said you were too young for? Same thing in the chat box. Dying, a retirement community, too young to be the sore all the time, going to a nursing home. From my book group on aging, there you go. Senior discounts, to hurt like this.
To move to a
I'm trying to see
retirement
everything.
community for 55 and up.
Right.
I'm too young to be old at age 70.
That's right, Evie. Too young to stop being active, retiring fully, nursing home. We see a lot of that. Oh yes, too young to have OA. So I know what that is. My mind just stopped going. I'm too young for that, right? Little play there. Letting my hair go wild. To retire, for references to being elderly. Osteoarthritis. Thank you so much for putting that in my head again. Free checking. Man, I'll take that any day. To be offered a seat on BART. To settle for aches and pains. So a lot of the things, again, I'm going to ask somebody to unmute and share why do we feel like we're too young to die, too young to retire? That's mostly what I'm seeing. Too young for the pains, too young to be called ma'am. Why do we feel we're too young for something?
Because
Hello?
we are.
Because we are.
You know,
who is going to speak?
This is Kathy Dalton.
Thanks, Kathy.
I had that experience that that I think Ashton Applewhite talks about being in the doctor's office and being told that, well, this just is the way it is for my knee. And, you know, the unspoken thing, and it was actually a new nurse practitioner to me, was because you're this age. You know, previously my previous nurse practitioner was older than I was. But this young person said, yeah, well, what do you expect? And I was like, I expect this need to work.
Yeah, Kathy. So thank you all. We really wanted this exercise to just show some of the things that, as Robert pointed out, is part of this institutionalized ageism that we've been experiencing. So now, if after like thinking about ageism in your own life, if we were to run that same poll again, Kyrié, can you pop that up for us? Would it be different this time? This time, how many of you consider our culture to be ageist? Well, we were at 100 there, but how many of you can see ageism in yourself now?
Yep, and the poll is up, and when it seems like we've gotten everyone who can voted, I'll share the results.
We're at about 50%. Got a little more to go here. Pop those polls in. And I'm seeing in the chat box one more thing here. I see from Linda, are we denying old age by saying we are too young for something? Nice quote. Okay.
All right, it seems to have leveled off, so I will end the poll and share the results.
Yep. So this time we're still at 100 on seeing our culture as being ageist. We've all agreed on that so far. But some of you have come up in whether you see it in yourself or not. So we're up to 74% of people who see themselves as ageist, as opposed to 62 before, and down 26 to those who don't, from 38. So we had some people have a little bit of an aha here, and that's exactly what we want. So let's move on to why we got here, okay? So are we all ageist? I would say yes. Turns out every one of us is ageist, okay? And actually, we fall somewhere along this continuum, okay? From absolutely no awareness to fully conscious about ageism. And just think for a moment where you fall on this continuum, because, you know, you're somewhere in here. You might be just being woken up to it, right? So let's think about how we got here, okay? So not only are we all ageist, but it also affects every single one of us, okay? So how is this happening? Well, Disney is a really good example of mainstream media that we've been exposed to from a very young age. There was a study done that looked at 93 characters from Disney movies over a 70-year period. 53% were portrayed as either grumpy, evil, sinister, helpless, or sad. 71% of those movies had at least one negative portrayal of an older character. And it's kind of interesting to note that the older male characters in primary roles, they were all figures of authority, like clergy, okay? But even kids' games and toys perpetuate ageism. Y'all played that? Because I know I have. Okay. Then we add in the billboards that we see, the greeting cards that bash getting old, the magazine ads, etc. This is a constant barrage of ageism coming at us. And unfortunately, until we reach a level of awareness, we can become immune to these constant attacks and literally buy into the fact that it's okay to make fun of old people, right? And that aging really is all about loss and decline. And after years of experiencing all this ageism, we internalize it, as Robert was saying before, and we actually believe it, okay? So if you come across something and you're curious about if it's ageist or not, submit it to Ashton Applewhite's site. Yo, is this ageist? And she's going to share that and respond. It's like a Q&A, okay? So aging actually equals living. If we're alive, we are aging. Anti-aging is synonymous with death, which is ironically the very thing all the anti-aging propaganda purports to avoid. So we need to stop allowing this to be our reality And we need to help others understand that this doesn't have to be their reality either. Okay, so all of this messaging we've been receiving all our lives has led many of us to hold implicit bias, which is our automatic, unexamined thoughts. Think of it this way, implicit bias is when I walk by the mirror and I say, oh goodness, you look old today. But that's my own bias, right? Jumping up. Explicit bias, that's kind of considered unacceptable. Like when I say out loud, perhaps, what a crabby old lady, something like that. That's explicit. And we know that that's totally unacceptable. But implicit bias and explicit bias are sometimes, well, the explicit is easy to see. Implicit is often difficult to find because it coexists with the explicit, right? And they sometimes contradict each other. And this is part of the reason why many of you might not have, answered the poll that you think you are ageist. Your explicit thoughts might be very compassionate toward older people, yet you might hold implicit bias. It's hidden, it's unintentional, yet it can crop up without your knowing it. And with that, I'm going to ask Ryan to pick up here and take us through language.
Thanks so much, Mel. So language has a huge impact on how we see our own aging and the assumptions we make about others based on perceived age. Mainstream media increasingly refers to the boomer generation entering elderhood as the silver tsunami. This catastrophizing language is the worst. It should come as no surprise that at some point, the baby boomers would grow older. But now it is termed a devastating disaster, a crisis. This is ageism. Same with the victim's narrative. It certainly doesn't help care partners to see themselves as the victim, burdened with caring for mom. Both of these examples show how language can pit the old against the young. So, have you heard talk about the millennials ruining everything? This is ageism. It begs the question, why do we even label each other into generations? Who or what does that serve? Does it connect us or does it further divide us? Not only are the words we use important if we are to end ageism, but so is how we use them. So you'll likely recognize who this is, Queen Elizabeth, who is over 90 years old. Well, let's pretend you just met. If you had the chance to talk to her, what would you say to her? Would you ask her what it was like to become queen at such a young age? Would you ask her thoughts on how the world has changed how the world has changed in the years that she's reigned? Or might your conversation go more like this? Oh, Queenie, sweetie, would you like some tea? Be careful, honey, the tea is hot. Here, let's blow on it together, shall we? Of course you wouldn't speak to Queen Elizabeth that way. Every person you interact with deserves no less dignified treatment and language than we would give the Queen. Obviously, this is quite an exaggeration. After today, you will all know elder speak when you hear it. High-pitched tone, using endearing words instead of someone's name, slower, exaggerated speech. This is not an appropriate way to speak to older people. Neither is controlling language. Louder, firmer tones with an authoritarian finality to it. Both of these types of languages serve to infantilize older people who have lived long, full lives. We know there is a lot of power behind the words we use. So let's flesh out our talk about language with an exercise together. So I'll ask you again to unmute yourself and call out the answers to the following questions for each of these ageist statements. There will be 3. So the first one is, I'm having a senior moment, and I'd like for someone to share what's ageist about this statement.
It makes it sound like only old people get, forget things and such.
Exactly. And does someone want to share what the intent of this statement is? Well, you sort of shared it, Nancy. You're sharing that you've forgotten something.
Well, that's usually what it's about, that you've
Yeah.
forgotten something or you can't find the word for something like that. And the other piece is that when I say it, what I'm thinking of is, oh my God, am I getting demented? And I'm so fearful about that, oh, well, it's a senior moment. It's a way of minimizing it and saying that, well, you know, that happens.
Yeah, it's like there's a given that if you are a senior, that you are forgetful.
I think there's shame associated with it too, the fear that you won't look capable in front of other people and they'll think less of you.
So how would you suggest that we reword it for folks who use it? Is there another way that you could say this?
I'm totally overloaded with stimulus and I can't keep everything in my head. We got too much input.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite response when someone who's older says this to me, or says, I'm sorry, I'm older, and they blame. I say, you probably have so much good information up there. It's no problem. I don't mind you taking a little bit longer than you need. But I forget things all the time.
Even saying good information, that feels a little infantilizing.
Thank you, Molly. I should be completely neutral. Lots of information up there.
I just say, oops, I blew it, and go on to the next thing.
Exactly. Thank you.
I think we can say the things that we've said already all our lives. Can somebody, oh, I don't recall her name right now, but this is what she did. Or all of those things that we did, it's on the tip of my tongue. I'll let you know if I remember. Those are the things we said for the last umpteenth years.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep saying them.
Exactly. Thank you. So the next one, I'm too old and young for that. What's ageist about this statement? I'm too old for that. I'm too young for that. This relates back to the exercise that we just did. No, go ahead, Rob.
I think it presumes that all older people are the same, and that we've internalized that sort of nonsense, in that you know, we have our individuality just gets flattened out in the larger culture, and we all become alike, and we internalize that message. So I'm too old for what? I mean, well, maybe I am too old for certain things, because quite frankly, there are normative parts of aging that, you know, may happen at some point in time, but it all is differential. So I think that, that deprivation of individuality, I think, is the core of the ageism there.
Thanks, Robert. And we've got some good points in the chat. The statement assumes that some things have a natural expected age range of appropriateness, like children's games that are labeled for certain age groups. I still like to play them at times. Exactly. Thanks, Denise. So the way that I explain it is that anything that's deemed not age appropriate for consenting adults is problematic. Deeming anything as not age appropriate for consenting adults is problematic. So the term age appropriate can be very loaded. So we explored the intent of the statement. Does anyone have anything else to share about the intent of the statement? It's just a generalization. Mary says that. Yeah, exactly. So we're just making generalizations, and
I think the intent is to set boundaries to include and exclude people.
And how do we think it can be reworded so that it's not ageist?
I think just saying, like, I'm not interested in that might be one way of doing it, depending on the context.
Yeah, so considering social norms and why we might have discomfort presenting a certain way or doing something. Exactly.
I think we have to, this is Mary, I think we have to see the thought because I think those thoughts come so naturally at times now. And I think we have to see it. And this is what's happening to me sometimes. And then I have to say, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, let me rethink that and see how I fit into that situation or that sentence. So instead of generalizing it, to make it a more personally based statement.
Thank you, Mary. That's exactly right.
I would say even why would you say that?
That's, well, Brian, you might have seen the script. You're getting ahead of yourself. So exactly, keep that thought, Brian. So the next one is, you'll understand when you are older. So this is an example of ageism against younger people. So what's ageist about the statement?
It's patronizing. It would be horrible even if it weren't ageist. So.
Exactly. It assumes that younger people don't have the emotional intelligence and can't empathize.
Yeah, it's demeaning in every sort of way. So, and it's also a power play. It's clearly, you know, the abuse of power in some way to put yourself, you know, as being more expert because of what? Because you got older? I mean, that's as just perverse as, you know, saying you don't have it because you're younger. So.
It's something that my parents always used to say to me when I was growing up, and mostly it was when I was doing something they didn't like. And so there was this assumption, and when I got old and wise like them, I would change my mind and I would do it their way, which of course, as a young person, only made me determined not to change my mind and not to do it their way.
Exactly, thank you. Yeah, and we're getting some good comments in the chat. So a good rewording is, my view on this has changed over time. That's great. Did you want to share something? Was there someone else who said something?
Well, I was just going to say, I think this is one of those areas where intent is really important. Because if you're trying to reassure somebody that you're not expected to know what it's like to drive a car, or you're not expected to know what it's like to be in college, or how hard it's going to be because they're only 13, it's a little different than, you know, than you don't understand because you're too young. Which is so intent, I think, often when we're looking at the isms, is really important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I agree with that about intent, because it can also be a way that we can use that to isolate. If we're feeling isolated or alone, it's also a way to push away younger people with whom we could have more contact.
Yeah, that's a great point, Carrie. Thank you. Yeah, the statement, it's intending, I think, to reassure youngers that they will have similar lived experiences in the future. But in reality, there's a good chance that they might be able to understand at that point. Thank you.
I think we have to.
Yep, go ahead, Evie.
We have to remember that obviously we gain knowledge and wisdom through experience, and our experience comes every day, and that's our aging natural journey. Unfortunately, we've equated that ageism into that, you know, you can't understand till you've gone through all of this. How many of you ever heard when you were a kid, oh, you have so much wisdom, or you must be an old soul, you understand things a different way? Again, that's ageist, and that's making that assumption that you can't understand things till you've gone through all the levels and stages of experience, and that's just not true.
That's a great point, Evie. Thank you. So that brings us to the compliments. So when people say things like young lady or young man to people who are older than them, I'm just curious, has anyone experienced that?
Yesterday.
Thank you, Evie, because, you know, I know that this occurs. I've seen it and I've heard it, but I was presenting this to my partner last night, and they said, does this really happen? So thank you, Evie. Yesterday. Living proof. Mel, do you want to, oh no, we stay on this slide, because what we're going to do is we're going to, I see, I still have more on my script. We know most people don't mean harm when they say some of these things, when they say the ageist compliments. But letting these comments pass perpetuates ageism. So how can we respond to these so-called compliments without being smug or sassy? So this is real life. How do you respond? And I think Brian got us there a little bit before, but we can respond with 3 ways we've developed. And if you come up with more, let us know, because we'd love to add to this. So the first way that you can respond to an ageist compliment is you can repeat it back to them. You can say it in kind. You can say something like, oh, thank you, young lady or young man or young person, whoever you're talking to. Second, you can show your pride cheerfully. You can say about what you're trying to compliment. You can say, actually, 60 is still 60, and honestly, I prefer 60 to 40. And last, you can answer with a look of genuine puzzlement, which is what Brian got at. And you can just say, what do you mean? So this throws the burden of understanding on how the remark is ageist back on the person who said the ageist compliment. So now we're going to take some time to practice responding to these ageist compliments. Welcome back, everyone. So how was it? Does anyone want to unmute themselves and say how it felt to?
It was fun. I liked it.
Great, yeah. Thanks, Erla.
It's nice small group.
Cool.
Yeah, I liked it too. I've been on a lot of Zoom calls lately, but I find the breakout sessions are really kind of nice because you have a way to really get to know some of the other people.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Does anyone else have? Yep, go ahead. Nancy, go ahead, share again, Nancy.
Unmute.
I said, it's nice to be able to talk without raising your hand, figuratively raising your hand.
Or shouting out so you're heard.
Great. So is everyone back, Kyrié?
Should be, because you don't
I
get
think
a
so,
choice.
but we're all learning Zoom together.
Yeah, usually everybody comes back.
As far as I understand, we're all back. So yeah, thank you so much for doing that. And I'm glad you all liked breakout rooms, because we're about to send you right into another one. So that's good too. So now we've all had a chance to take a brief look at how we've gotten to this point, understanding the cultural context about how these messages get, really sent to us from a really super young age, and learning how we've seen our aging selves and others with such an unkind eye. And I hope at this point we can all see that we are all ageist and it's none of our faults. Really, we're steeped in this culture. And so we've looked at how that's been compounded through institutionalized ageism, like even baked into our language. And so if you're like me, the next question on my mind always is like, okay, now we see it, what do we do now? How do we move forward? In Ashton's TED Talk, she invited all of us to join the movement against ageism. And we really believe it's time for a radical age movement. In order to do that, in order to join the movement and to move it forward, we need to take action. So today we started, like we said, first step to change is awareness. Second step is action. And action is how we change things. So we are going to do another exercise. We're going to start here all together using the chat box, and then we're going to move into breakout rooms to share. So hopefully most of you have downloaded the handout that if we were all in person, we would have given you. And on one side, it had those compliments and stuff. And on the other side, it has a commitment form. Yep, Mel's holding it up. If you do have that, have it near you. If you don't, grab some scratch paper or something. I know I have mine downloaded. You can do it digitally too. I don't have a printer, so I've got mine on my iPad here. So grab that. You're going to need it for the next section. So thinking about taking action, we need to think about what kind of actions we want to take. We want to think about the things that we can start doing, the things we can stop doing, and the things we can keep doing. After this, if you need more inspiration about things to do, check out Old School. It's image capture of the website, OldSchool.info, chocked full of free vetted anti-ageism resources. But now we're going to think about our own selves. So we're going to start using the chat box. And this is just going to be a brainstorm. There are no right or wrong answers. At this point, we're not asking you to commit to anything, but I would love everyone to go to your chat box and for just a minute or so, type in ideas of things we can all keep doing. What are things you can keep doing to help dismantle ageism? So for example, I can keep giving this workshop to help people talk about and talk together about ageism. So right now, just go to that chat box. They can be ideas for yourself or others. What are things we can all keep doing to dismantle ageism? I'm going to give us all 1 minute to do that. Go. So keep buying non-ageist birthday cards. Keep sharing Ashton's book. Keep pursuing new careers. Yeah. Keep owning your gray hair. Keep listening to people of all ages. Keep standing up against ageism. Keep engaging in multi-generational friendships. Keep not making ageist remarks. Keep thinking about language. These are awesome. All right, now what I'd like y'all to do is to look through all of these amazing ideas that we just crowdsourced and pick the 2 that really resonate with you. What are 2 things you want to keep doing, and fill those in either on your commitment form if you've printed it out or on that scratch paper you grabbed. So just select just 2. What 2 things do you want to keep doing? Keep speaking the truth of the issue. Continue to correct friends when they say senior moment. Call out ageist language when you hear it. They're great. Keep watching out for ageism in myself. Keep making intersectional alliances. Keep educating others about ageism. Awesome. All right, write down those 2 things you want to keep doing.
We've already got a lot of age activists in the group. I love that.
We do. I know this is such a primed group. I feel like this is not a good sample of the general public, but I love this sample. All right. Now
these are our people.
Yeah. These are definitely our people. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. This is awesome. All right, next you can see on your commitment form, the next thing is what are you going to start doing? So go to that chat box again and write out all the ideas you can think of things you could start doing. For example, you could start by, well, you probably all have already signed up for the OldSchool.info newsletter if you're here, because that's the main way we promoted this. But you can sign up for newsletters of Old School or Eden Alternative or Pioneer Network, these really great age-positive organizations, Encore. I'm going to not be able to name all of the amazing allies in this group. You all put them in the chat box. I shouldn't call it anybody because I can't remember everyone. Great. Yeah. You could start facilitating this workshop. Thank you, Evie. You could start a consciousness raising group. If you want to know how to do that, come to our session on Friday with Ashton. We're going to tell you how to start a consciousness raising group. Great, Helen. Yep. Continue to add to the top 60 over 60 resources. Yep. You could start by figuring out how to do this workshop. These are great. Start collaborating more with others. And so the cool thing with this brainstorm too is some things other people can keep doing, maybe are things you aren't doing yet. So those can be some of your start doings. So go ahead and look back through all of these things that have come in the chat and pick 2 things you want to start doing and write them down on your commitment form or your piece of paper. Develop relationships with people of all ages. Practice replying to ageist compliments. Offer anti-aging module to our multicultural awareness class. Yes. Do more intergenerational connection. These are great. Work on intergenerational alliances. Great. All right, write down those 2 things you are going to start doing.
I like this one too, Kyrié. Get this topic to be covered in college curriculums and high school and elementary.
So I know, BC, I'm sure there's more, but I know VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, has an amazing curriculum around ageism. And Crystal, who's on the call, works at USI, where we partnered with them and taught the magic class, which a bunch of the Eden folks also in here are alumni of. So there's definitely some colleges that are wise to this, but yeah, let's get into more. All right, and then you probably guessed our last section we're going to talk about are sometimes the hardest, things we can stop doing. So now I want you to use this chat box to think about what are some things you could stop doing to, you know, help move the movement against ageism forward. So for example, you could stop calling it a senior moment when you forget something, because as Ashton says, you didn't call it a junior moment when you were younger. Stop fearing getting older. Yep. Stop using ageist language. Stop telling myself I'm too old for things. Stop coloring my hair. Kathy, I want to see it. Show us step by step.
Less than a year ago, you said that was going to be hard for you, so I am so proud of you.
I remember that too.
Yeah, and no judgment for everyone who colors their hair. They're like, our world is seriously ageist, and that, you know, self-expression. But I've been reading articles about where there's going to probably be a lot more people going gray after quarantine because you can't go to the hair salon. So it's, yeah, for the people that need the push, maybe that's the push.
Yes, this was the push, yes. And I cut my hair also, so it would happen quicker.
Nice. Oh, Kathy, we're excited. You have to, send us all the posts to see it happening. Stop buying anti-aging cosmetic products, which is hard to do because anything, I have very dry skin, and anything that is for dry skin is also anti-aging, because I try really hard not to support bottles that say it. And it's just like, I can't get heavy moisture without it saying anti-aging. It's so frustrating. All right, pick your 2 things you're going to stop doing, write them down on your commitment form. And now we are going to throw you in your last breakout room. And as you're writing those things down, I really encourage you after this workshop is over to really think about the commitments that you've just made to help put an end to ageism. When we're making commitments to stick to them, it can be really helpful to add a time frame. When are you going to stop doing this? How long are you going to keep doing this for? That can help really make sure we get through some barriers to make the commitments in the beginning. And then also think about how you're going to go about doing these things by really playing it through in our mind, like, okay, how am I going to respond to ageist compliments? You know, do I need to practice first? Do I need a reminder? Really thinking through your commitments is going to help you keep them. And another thing that really helps commitments is being held accountable. And so to that end, we are going to put you all back in breakout rooms. And this is going to be a really quick breakout room. And what you're going to do is you're going to hold up your commitment form, you know, if you have it, and that's okay if you don't. And to your group, you're each going to say your commitments. So I'm going to give an example. The 3 of us that are hosts are going to give an example. And so you know who to go first, because sometimes it's hard in groups. We're going to ask that you go alphabetically by first name. So of the 3 of us, I would go first, and I would say, 2 things I'm going to keep doing are lifting up the voices of others around ageism and speaking out and creating tools to fight ageism. 2 things I will start doing is creating online courses. Well, now I have to do that because I've just told all of you. And being more consistent about being on social media around this stuff, because I'm terrible at that. And 2 things I will stop doing are doubting my voice and assuming people already know what I have to say.
Okay, so I would be next then, right?
Yeah, I was like,
okay. So 2 things I will keep doing is these workshops on ageism, not just this one, but others, and presenting. So at conferences and wherever I can, presentations on ageism. 2 things I will start doing, a local anti-ageism campaign. It's actually, I did start little baby steps on that one. So, and also researching more anti-ageist tools to use. And there's a lot of those on Old School. 2 things I will stop doing is letting those ageist statements go without responding. It's harder than we think it is. And the other is thinking things are inappropriate due to my age. Yours, Ryan.
Great. So mine are 2 things I will keep doing. I will keep scouring the internet for anti-ageist content for Old School. And I'll keep talking, educating, and writing about ageism. This one's a big one. 2 things I will start doing: writing a book and making memeable content, which might be a word that you might not know, but it's like making content that's easily shared quickly, usually images and words, sometimes just images, sometimes just words. And then 2 things I will stop doing: being too afraid to call out ageist comments, and being too afraid to make my voice be heard.
Thank you so much. How were those conversations? Were those kind of like maybe one person? How was that to read your commitment out loud and hear others?
I think it was great because we see we're all pretty much in the same boat.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Great. Well, we encourage you to share your commitment even more widely too, if you want. You can see here, we really encourage you to take a selfie if you so desire, or, you know, that's something you do with your commitment form. And if you tag at OldSchool_info, we will then share that again more widely, and we can help. That's one thing we can all start doing to raise more awareness around this. And sort of in that vein, I would love for, we're going to take the slide down so we can all see, put yourself in gallery view so you can see everyone's little things, and then call up your commitment form, and let's all just hold them up right now for the group. Yay! Oh, maybe your printers. That's great. Yay! Awesome. Great to see those. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great. So so with that, obviously I'm Kyrié, Mel, and Ryan. After this, please, please, please do get in touch with us. Here are our personal websites. Also on the email that was sent to you with this, you have our emails. We want to help you dismantle ageism by doing this workshop yourself, you know, or we're happy to help facilitate it for a group that you might have. And with that, we really thank you so much for being here today. And we have about 10 minutes left. And so we'll move into Q&A, because like I said, we want you to be able to do this workshop yourself. So if you have something you want to know, throw it in the chat or unmute yourself. And Kathy, tag it on Instagram, Twitter. Can you tag on Facebook, Ryan? Question mark? Yeah. But we're OldSchool_info on all the things.
And then again, do we share where the handouts and everything can be found for them, Kyrié?
Yep. Let me post a link right now in the chat, OldSchool.info. And if you go to the tools section, it is in there under Dismantling Ageism. And I'll grab the link right now. Any other questions you have, feel free to shout them out or throw them in the chat.
Yeah, are you okay with us using pieces, like putting together our own thing in our own way? Or do you want it to be done as you have it?
I mean, Mel and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm all about like open source, iterative design thinking, like take it, make it better. I'll ask if you make something better, let us know so we can improve this too. But yeah, go for it. We're about this information getting out there in whatever way makes the most sense. Did I speak out of turn at all, Mel and Ryan, on your thoughts?
No, but it's designed, you can take it the way it is. It's designed to go anywhere, or you can, as Kyrié say, take it out further. We will be doing other workshops though, just so you guys know. Here I said it again, just so everybody knows, and we will post those also on Old School. Can I pull up the website real quick? Would that be okay, Kyrié?
Go for it, yeah. Brian,
Okay,
there are no local
can
groups
see.
yet, but if you want to start some, we would love that. And Friday's call with Ashton about consciousness raising groups really is going to be about how to start an ongoing group in your own local community. So if you haven't signed up yet for Friday, I would recommend you doing that if you want to create an ongoing support group in your community.
So here's the website, and if you go to tools, okay, it'll take you down. You're going to go down a little further, Dismantling Ageism, and you'll see a link for the slides or a PowerPoint, the actual script, and the handout, so the commitment form and the compliments that we used. So it's all here for you.
And where's this thing about Friday? Oops.
That's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Kyrié, can we put that link in there too?
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hear which link. Oh, Friday's link. Yes.
So everybody,
that'll go in the chat box.
I'm interested in starting a Minneapolis St. Paul group. Anybody from around here? Grab my name.
Great.
And I've got a Facebook.
Great, Brian. That's good to know. Yeah. And we will also send out the, I'm sorry, Kyrié, the chat box. So there was great conversation going on in there. You'll see the people's names who said what, and feel free to reach out to each other through those comments too.
I was wondering, it's Mary. Hi, Kyrie. I was wondering if there are any references, because the issue that I'm coming upon is wanting to change the verbiage and not really, you know, having the best thoughts myself. So is there any thing I could look at, you know, that talks about maybe the older generation or younger or whatever with different verbiage, different ideas on how to address it?
So you're talking about language changes, Mary?
Yes.
We have, there's some of that on Old School, I know. Go ahead, Ryan, sorry.
No, I was just going to recommend, if you, when you go on Old School, you can search in you can go to the search and search language, and there should be a bunch of stuff that comes up. I hope a bunch of stuff.
And if there's not a ton of stuff, there will be in a couple weeks, because we're working on a redo of Old School's taxonomy. So if the search isn't perfect today, give us a little grace. In a couple weeks, it'll be better.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Kyrié, where did you say the workshop was under? Was it under tools? What was it under?
Tools.
Okay, thank you.
Tools, and then scroll down, and they're in alphabetical order. So look for D for dismantling ageism.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
More questions.
Again, I'm sorry. Is there any way to put out, if everybody wants to or who wants to, each other's contacts, so we could, you know, form something together or learn from each other or brainstorm?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to do that. We could do that in the chat box now. You could, trying to think of the best way. That is a great, I love that idea. I'm trying to think of the best way to facilitate it. Or I could also, in our follow-up email, how about this? In our follow-up email, we'll say, if you want to get connected with others, reply back and let us know, and then we'll release those emails to everyone who said they wanted that. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Way
Give
to go.
the wheels 1 second to turn.
And Kathy's looking for a text online that folks could read about activism around ageism, and if they'd like to help, so they, oh, sorry, I'm getting lost, about the length of a long Atlantic or New Yorker article. So we don't post individual articles on Old School, but
I think of a really good one now.
if you want to, we can find that information, because we do have a lot of articles that we could post. So let's keep in touch about how we could get that to you. I can't think of it.
Email us, Kathy, and we'll send you some links.
But there's tons
when we have a second.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question from Jody. Can/should youngers be asking people in the market who appear to be older if they'd like help, so they don't have to come out and shop?
I'd say so.
That is a good, sticky question. So I think, this could come up a lot in these workshops too, of like, is it ageist to offer your seat on the subway to someone? Is it ageist to offer someone help? It's complicated is the answer, right? And so I think it can always help here to express your intent first, you know, so that it's not perceived wrong. So, and I would just tread gently and softly, like you always want to be helpful, but you don't want to disempower someone.
I think it's very simple just to say to someone, may I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Usually people appreciate if you're offering them a seat on the bus. I know I do.
Well,
I had someone in this another business
ageist.
workshop not like it. Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding this, but I thought it was more about the whole COVID exposure here. So
It
yeah,
is, I
mean, I think it's a whole different thing, whole different context.
Yes,
About
for me,
helping.
I was asking the question because, you know, those of us who are over 65 are really not supposed to go out. We're supposed to be asking for help for other people to get our groceries because we're at higher risk. And I know a lot of very well-intended younger people who are in the markets who want to say something tactfully and helpfully, but if they say, you know, it seems like you might be over 65 and I'm just wondering if I could help you get groceries so you don't need to come out. Or can you even be more direct and say, you know, you're putting us at risk and yourself at risk, and we don't want to disempower you, but how can, you know, how do you get older folks to ask for help as a way to protect themselves and each other at this time? It's just complicated, I know.
So in this time, Jody, too, I feel like what could be helpful is actually reaching out to the manager, finding out there's a lot of different orgs that are connecting people who need groceries with people who are willing to get them. And so find out who those are in your area. I know there's like a bajillion, like so many of them right now. Talk to the manager of the store and have them put something at checkout that explains what's offered. And then I would say to the youngers, get yourself connected with someone who's already putting these people together. So help raise more general awareness, whether that's also like posting it on, you know, light poles and stuff and then sanitizing your hands afterwards, obviously, that these are available. So helping, rather than doing it in that direct way, which could come across as ageist, could make then someone feel shame around their age because of the world we live in, get to that same good end result a different way.
I have a question out there right now regarding this whole COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And what I am perceiving is really a great amount of ageism with the statement of the highly vulnerable over an age. And then it goes into an underlying. My question to anybody that's in the medical field and not, when did being of a certain age become an underlying circumstance? That's what I am hearing.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to say something similar to that. I'm 70. I'm not supposed to go out. I'm not immunocompromised. I'm completely healthy. There is absolutely nothing about me that says I cannot go and do my shopping other than my age at age 7. Right. And that's a bunch of nonsense. I go out and I be careful. I'm a healthcare practitioner. I've done infection control. I know how to go out there and be as careful as can be. But because I am 70, I am not going shopping. That's the thing.
And I am really tired of hearing it every day. And I am not a bigot. I work with people of all different colors, race, and everything else. Now with the news that it's affecting a large percentage of Black people, it's a totally different, or maybe I'm hearing something, and please help me here, because I'm tormented on this, that, you know, all of a sudden there's a different dialogue of how they don't have the medical. Well, our Medicaid and Medicare sucks. You know, our Social Security, I'm a really blunt person, sucks. It go all the way down through all of it all, and I'm not hearing the same. It's well, we don't want our grandmothers to die, do we? I want to shoot Cuomo every time he says that. Excuse me, I gotta stop.
I would like to say that as a young person, I haven't been going out at all, right? I haven't been going out because I realized that I could carry it and spread it. And I'm the reason why I don't go out shopping, I don't care about if I mean, I do care about if I get infected, of course, but that's not how I'm approaching it. I'm approaching it being worried that I will make other people sick if I'm carrying it. So I choose to do that. So I think the encouragement of staying home and not going shopping is really good for everyone to
but
hear
they're not,
Yeah,
exactly they're not saying if you are 20 years old, we suggest you stay home.
No, they are. They're suggesting everyone stays home.
Yeah, everyone is.
I would like to say something regarding the whole language issue, okay? Mm-hmm. I was working at a newspaper back in the 70s when the women's movement with the second wave feminism was big. And at some point, the newspaper like got the message, and a memo went round, and we were told, you are no longer going to say things like the petite divorcee when it has nothing whatever to do with why she's in the news. And you're not going to run pictures of women in bathing suits as filler. And all these things you're not going to do. Well, that happened because there was this feminist movement and they made a lot of noise. And so the media got the message and they changed their language. And if old people got out there and made a lot of noise, they would change their language around aging. They would, because they understand that it has an impact. And when that happened, I also have to say, there were these old men who worked there, these crusty old guys, and but they did it because the edict came down from the people at the top who cared about what people thought. And they had to do it. And so it changed. And it can change with regard to old people too. We need to put pressure on them and say, we're watching you. We know what you're saying on your broadcast. We know what you're putting in your newspaper. Stop doing that.
Yeah, when it comes to COVID-19.
Nancy, thank you. Oh, sorry. And I was just going to say, I know we're at the bottom of the hour. Yeah. So I just wanted to say, Nancy, that is perfect. And I really agree with you. And I would love to continue the conversation with any and all of you who, want to still be connected. So we will be sending a follow-up email. If you want your contact information to be shared with others on this call, please go ahead and reply with it. We'll put instructions in the email, and please stay connected in whatever way you best like to connect with us. And thank you so, so much for being here with us today.
Yes, thank you all.
Thank you.
And we'll be sending out the chat box, the recording to all of you. And can't wait to work with you as we move forward together.
And thank you to the three of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good to meet everybody. See you
Have
later,
a great
Mel.
rest of your day.
Bye, Andy.
Bye.
Great
Bye.
discussions.